So welcome, Vedant. Good to have you here.
Thank
Figure
you
we
for
can
having
start a
me.
little bit for with a little intro. Tell a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Vedant. I'm the founder and CEO of AloeVR, but that's just one title. I'd like to hopefully someday be known as like a multi hyphenate, where you have like different hyphens after your title. Vedant hyphen friend hyphen good family member hyphen community member. But my main passion right now is AloeVR.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm an engineer, and like there's some people in the industry that have like 1,000 letters after their name. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like, and then you get on LinkedIn and there's like PhD, PE, something, 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 something. I'm like, well, what happened, man? I feel like your name is, you're losing the meaning of your name, right? Because
Yeah.
it's an
When there's an
important thing.
alphabet soup after.
Exactly, exactly. But I like it, friend. Those are more important things, right, in life.
Absolutely.
Definitely, definitely. And, yeah, say if you want, maybe explain a little bit about AloeVR, sort of, what it's about, what your goals are. So
For sure. So, AloeVR, our mission is to serve students, mainly students of disadvantage, through mindfulness building virtual reality experiences that are culturally relevant and trauma informed, and also non addictive or ethical in that sense.
Hmm, interesting. And so how'd you end up with VR as a remedy for that, right?
Yeah,
I guess
great
maybe a
question.
big
So,
question, so it's
yeah,
something that
that's a big one off the top. Yeah. So, there's a couple of reasons. So I worked as an educator and basically it was a Title One school. So
Mhm.
99.9% free and reduced lunch or, students struggling with factors of poverty. And I was realizing one of the main challenges they faced was there wasn't enough access to mental health resources. So I wanted to figure out a way to serve them in that way because also, and we can talk about this more later, but a passion in
Mhm.
my personal life is mindfulness and meditation, yoga, that sort of thing.
We'll definitely get to that.
Yeah. And so I wanted to bring mindfulness in some way to my students. I was a sixth grade English teacher, but teachers are kind of expected to be a lot of things for students. Again, multi hyphenates, if you will. You have to be kind of their parent in some ways, their psychologist in some ways, if you want to be a truly effective teacher. And I wanted to serve them with more mental health resources. And the whole mindfulness thing I tried to bring to them. The issue is, again, I was a sixth grade teacher, students 10 to 12. It's tough to tell kids to just kind of sit down and meditate, right? Like us adults have trouble with meditating for 20 minutes right off the bat, right? So there was a disconnect there, and I wanted to make it more engaging. So to bring it back to the original question, that's why I brought virtual reality in because I wanted to sort of gamify mindfulness. I wanted to sort of make it more fun and immersive. But also I saw there was a lot of research behind VR boosting mental health and amplifying mental health at a sort of faster rate, if you will, than just regular, meditation or mindfulness, if in a vacuum.
Yeah, if you don't mind me saying, right, like, when I think about, mindfulness, I think about, being in the present moment. So
Yep.
when you first explained this to me, I was like, "Well, but VR, I feel like you're not in the present moment, right?" So, like, how do you connect the 2? And or I haven't read the research, so that's why I'm curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I'm glad you asked this because, interestingly, VR kind of tricks your brain into being in the present moment in whatever the environment is that
Hmm,
the VR game is presenting to you. So definitely mindfulness is about noticing, it's about having empathy for yourself, it's about being in the present moment. But sometimes your present moment, your present situation can be really challenging. Let's say you're a student at a school and you're in this situation with bullies, or you really this one teacher really bugs you, or you're having a rough time at home, and so your current moments, your current situations, you need some sort of mental health break from that. Then VR is very effective at tricking yourself into kind of finding that peace for that small moment of time. But I'll give you an example of some research that kind of first got me on my journey researching VR. But basically, it was a Radiolab podcast, and what they're researching is like how VR can help for therapy. And all it did was it brought users to a sort of empty blank room, and then you had a sort of like Sigmund Freud type figure across from you. This is in the game.
Hmm.
Then you're just supposed to tell the Freud figure like your problems or your challenges that you're facing in your life. Simple enough.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, but then interestingly, the game switches your perspective all the way into the Freud figure's perspective, and suddenly you're watching yourself. Then you watch yourself, low resolution, you just watch yourself reciting your own problems. And the thing is that it humanizes yourself because we're actually great at caring for other people and caring for our friends and family and everything. But we have the most criticism and hate for ourselves sometimes. And sometimes that self love aspect is really challenging for people. So in this study, the user would watch themselves explain their problems and then reply with advice for yourself as the Freud figure. Then it would switch you back again, back the other way until you're yourself again or your own video game character. And then you would hear your own advice. And so it helps people kind of treat themselves like their best friend as in a way, instead of being so critical, and helped shake up the normal neuro pathways, if you will, kind of shake up the snow globe of the mind so you could have more empathy for yourself. And all of this was in a very graphically simple, low poly, as they would call it. So, like, the graphics were very kind of rudimentary, but they saw incredible data from it, positive data, because people were gaining more empathy for themselves in this certain environment, which would not have been even possible in a regular therapist's office. Really?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I feel like, disassociating, right? I guess to not get too complicated, I guess to realize that there's like your thoughts and there's the stories in your head, and then there's
Yeah.
like your actual self, right? So, and it to really grasp that idea is a difficult thing. So this, being able to visualize it in 3D, right? In like a VR situation, for somebody that isn't, I don't know, as much into, I don't know. I mean, you and I, we read maybe some esoteric things, right? And like have are inclined to that, but maybe somebody that isn't so much inclined towards that, then they would never be exposed to it, right? So, and
Right.
there's people that live their entire lives never really realizing that, there's like there's the ego, and then there's you, right? There's your real self, right? So that's interesting that they, yeah, and you can sort of uh, you know expedite that process of realization. That's interesting that they did that. I'm assuming this is like a university study?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a university study, but covered by the podcast Radiolab.
Mhm.
And well, and I also do want to stress, like, there's no the goal, at least with my company, it's not to replace a therapist. It's not to
Right.
replace regular real life meditation. Talk therapy's amazing. Meditation's amazing as it is in the
Mhm.
real world. But what we'd like to do is be another tool in the tool belt of a teacher or a counselor in a school environment that can often be unpredictable. It can be a little bit crazy, right? It's
Well,
kind of hard to find a peaceful meditation spot at school, or it's hard to get true in depth therapy at a school. right? So
Yeah, not to mention the fact that, there's how many kids were at your school, right? And there's only probably one therapist or what do you call those, um,
counselors,
counselors? Thank you. Yeah, there's probably just
yeah,
one counselor for how many kids, right? So they can only get to I guess it's just one more resource, right, that they can have.
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because one of the big value adds that I see from AloeVR is kind of like supporting counselors that are overworked. So, like, according to like it's like the National Counselor Administration or something, the recommended counselor to student ratio is 1 to 250, but on average in schools it's 1 to 415. So one counselor to 415 students. And a lot of students don't even know they can go to counselors with problems because of this. Because when they go to the counselor only has time for like, figuring out your schedule or making sure you're on pace to graduate. But there's so much more to learning. There's so much more to social emotional learning than that. And I see future schools as social emotional learning, learning about social emotional regulation, that being just as important as reading or math. And that helps kids in all walks of their life, including their careers.
Yeah, it sort of makes me think, when I was a kid, I went to a Montessori school. That was sort of part of growing up, right? There was like these activities that wasn't just like sitting at a desk, uh, writing or, doing math or something like that at the age of 12, right?
Right.
I was doing other things as well. They're sort of hands on. And I feel like it's maybe, especially even at the younger ages, that's very important, right? To like not just be sitting trying to consume information, but also just like explore your surroundings and stuff. So I
Absolutely.
definitely find value to that. And especially nowadays, I feel like, um, you know, there now we have sort of both parents that are working. And so
Yeah.
then you have kids that are going to school and like school is like where they're learning a lot of stuff, right? So it's like the experience needs to be more holistic than before, I feel.
Yeah,
So,
especially when we're we have students who are gonna enter a job climate where they're gonna have to like compete with AI potentially. There's gonna be so many more new challenges to where the same like rows of desks and facing the teacher and memorizing facts from the teacher, that isn't relevant anymore. That was relevant maybe during the Industrial Revolution,
mhm,
but now we're moving into a different age where we have to prepare students for the new challenges coming ahead. And social emotional learning is one thing that can help students face the traumas of climate change or face the traumas of day-to-day life. It's kind of a tool that helps you face a variety of different challenges in life. But also, it helps you in like a business board meeting. I've found as a founder, as an entrepreneur, what's a lot more important than content or the textbook sort of education is just interpersonal, sort of learning how to talk to people, learning how to listen, learning how to make connections. All of that has been a lot more important for my business than like learning, you know,
mhm.
what different business terms or how to do advanced calculus. Those are always things you can figure out through YouTube later. But the social emotional, the interpersonal
Mhm.
kind of things that's tougher, a little bit tougher to learn.
Yeah, I think, after leaving university, you realize how little your professors know, Or like
Yeah,
if you ever taken a business class, you would sort of think like, "Oh, have these guys even tried to start their own business? Maybe not, or maybe they have, I don't, assume."
but
But,
yes,
who knows, right? But a lot of them haven't actually. They're just like in academia their entire lives, and then they don't go out into the world. And like you're saying, now it's like you take, I don't know, a history class, and I obviously it's very important to know your history, but at the same time, you can sort of Google that now, right? Or
right,
if you, get on Chat GPT and just like, hey, um, I don't know, write me a 2-page essay about the Mexican American War or something, I don't
yeah,
know. So, it's definitely changing the paradigm there,
right,
and and really, like you're saying, is you know what they say, like, they say, your net worth is your network. So,
Ah,
having that capacity to meet people I guess the social skills and other things that they don't really, put as much importance in, are important and are definitely, I think, more and more important now than before, so.
yeah, and if you take it kind of in the other direction, like what happens when you don't have social emotional skills, or if you don't really have kind of that peace of mind or good mental health, studies show that symptoms of trauma or poor mental health can lead to higher rates of incarceration. They obviously lead to lower grades.
Mhm,
They lead to poor or physical health. The whole mind body connection, of course, it's hyper related. And so a lot of these kind of macro big problems that we have in society today, you can kind of trace back to child trauma or child
mhm.
abuse, cycles of poverty. It's all kind of interrelated there.
Definitely, I think it's important for everybody to sort of look back and reflect as to what may have, different key factors that may have formed their sense of self and, and I guess their personality, if anything. So, and really evaluate that. And then, if there's something you want to address, you can address it. Right. And obviously always from the lens of like, hey, never like a self-loathing aspect, right? Like
Right.
you were saying, right? Like worthiness, right? That I feel like it's so easy. I think you actually just said it that it's that we're our worst critics, right? Like it's something that's difficult to even realize that everybody has their inner critic and that actually leads me to a question is like
Sure.
was there anything when you were first getting started with AloeVR that you thought maybe, oh, were there any thoughts of like, "Oh, I can't do this," or I'm not, capable or what have you?
Yeah, 100%. So I for my undergrad I studied anthropology and journalism,
Right.
and then for my master's I studied education, and so none of those really intersect with business. But journalism and anthropology especially are all about asking questions. It's about curiosity. It's about learning about the world. So though I didn't know, how to even do, like a QuickBooks bookkeeping spreadsheet to keep track of things for my business yet, I knew how to ask questions. I knew how to be curious. And a lot of times making business questions, well, they have a saying, it's like you ask for advice first and then you ask for money later. And so I found some incredible mentors, investors, just by asking questions, just by being curious about their lives, just by trying to figure out what mistakes they've learned from, but also base things like what brings them joy, different things like that. Being curious about the world. And then I started to gain more confidence in things I didn't know how to do, and sometimes learning from my own mistakes. But over time, and I owe a lot to like close friends and mentors that support, but over time I kind of sort of patched together what I would say is like probably an undergrad business degree in terms of what I've learned so far through books, people, mistakes, all those things.
Yeah, I think it's important to always push your boundaries, right? And I think something that isn't taught in school is the fact that, hey, you're gonna be learning for the rest of your life. I think I mean, maybe it's personally, I don't know about you, but, when I was in school, I was like, "Okay, once I graduate, I'm good," and, like, that's what I needed to know to be an adult,
Yep.
you know? And or, like, to achieve your goals, in general, right? So I think, uh and then again, I mean, I am an engineer, so maybe I didn't go to that extreme. I always knew that there's more to learn, but, but I think that's just something that everybody is gonna deal with, right? Like, you always are gonna need to unless you just want to stay stagnant and not do anything, right? Then
Right.
you're just living in your daily life. You're gonna learn new things. So, mm,
Yeah, and I think some people feel that it's like high school, college, then you're done learning, then you're supposed to just get a job, try and rise up the ranks, picket fence, house,
mhm,
family. But I'll just speak personally, like that kind of linear way of thinking about life didn't really interest me. Like, of course, I'm interested in like having a family someday, or I'm interested in some of those things, but to me, this exact moment that we're experiencing right now is the only moment that's guaranteed. It's the only moment that we're guaranteed to be alive in and breathing and noticing things and being conscious observers of our experience, right? So to me, it's like I can't wait on some linear kind of factory line to rise up some ranks of a white collar company or whatever it is. I have to like try and do what's most fulfilling to me in any given moment, you know?
mhm.
And so that's kind of why like I wanted to take risk and I wanted to shake things up. And especially because I right now I don't have a family to support. I can take risk and I can fail and not have other people depend on me.
Yeah, I think that's like sort of 2 points that come to mind, right? Is like, one, are you gonna live life to the fullest? Or are you gonna do everything uh to your inner truth? Like, are you gonna do what you want in this moment? And it doesn't come from a place of like selfishness, right? It just comes from a place of inner truth. Like, this is my truth in this moment, and I'm living in the present, and I'm not gonna let any worry of the future uh sort of affect me right now. And this is what I want. And to be and this it's difficult to be clear about what you want, right? Some people just aren't clear about what they want, and then they sort of fall into the rat race, right? And they fall into the just right, because it's sort of like, if you don't decide what you want, society will decide for you. So, it's easy to fall into that. And especially as a guy, I feel like we're sort of raised to have certain responsibilities. And I think you can, if you get married, you sort of feel responsible for your wife. And then when you have kids, you feel responsible for them as well, right? And so then you start maybe not making decisions exactly from your inner truth, right? But
Right.
more so from a position of responsibility, um, which is a noble thing, right? But I feel like if you're going to uh, live a life of meaning, that you need to really come from your inner truth at all moments. So,
Yeah, and so let me ask you this. This is a question I've been tossing around for a while. So like let's say you have a guy who he has like a regular job and he's like pretty content with like the regular job, coming home, maybe watching some NBA, drinking some beer, and then going to sleep? Is it is his life inherently fine and content and great just because he's happy with what he knows in a sense? Or does everyone deserve the chance to sort of find new meaning, find new experience,
mhm.
and get out of their comfort zone? Which, as an entrepreneur, it's not easy. It's definitely really stressful. I might be a lot more content just being a teacher and having summer breaks and just kind of chilling out? So what would
Yeah,
your
yeah, I think I can't say that I haven't contemplated that before, right? I think it definitely takes a certain person to wanna be an entrepreneur, to sort of go out of the norm. It's because it really isn't normal to be an entrepreneur, right? I
right?
feel like nowadays you get sort of flooded with it on Instagram and on different social medias of like, "Oh, everyone needs to be an entrepreneur," right? Like, it's not a normal thing.
Yeah.
And there's definitely difficulties, and there's gonna be moments where you're gonna doubt yourself, right? But, I think, uh, I think really the important thing is to, like I said, live your inner truth, right? Like, if this guy that's going home to his wife and kids and then watches some basketball. If and, during the day he works, a normal 9 to 5 job. If that's what he truly on the inside is okay with, then I don't see a problem with that, right? Like, I'm not gonna
Right.
denigrate you. I'm not gonna,
Makes sense.
you know, question you, right? As long as it's truly is, right? The thing is it's difficult at times to delineate that, right? To sort of from the outside looking in to see whether that's actually true. Um, so
Yeah, because if it's bringing him true joy and true contentment, then that's beautiful and that's great. But I think my fear, just speaking from my own life, is that it's kind of like you're familiar with Plato's cave,
sure, yeah, yeah.
that sort of thing. So, like, my fear is not experiencing, missing out on some of the true beauties of life if I stay too safe, if I stay too close minded, if I'm like looking at the shadows in the cave, right?
Right, right. So basically you're saying he's just not aware of what could be.
Right. And that kind of scares me. But there's
Mm,
a tension in me between like adventuring,
mhm,
uh, kind of getting out of my comfort zone or, being more like content and safe, you know?
right.
It's kind of hard to know the path.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a fine line, right? I think, I was just talking about this the other day where I feel like the the way you need to go is to live on the edge, right? So you don't wanna live so comfortable to where you're okay all the time,
Yeah.
and you don't wanna live, so far off the edge
Too
that
much risk.
right. Well, risk is relative, but you can sort of get overwhelmed, and then, put yourself in a bad position, right? And maybe bad is relative too, right? Maybe there's no good
Yeah.
and there's no bad, but without getting too far off topic, like I think the important thing is to make fear your best friend, right? And
Yeah.
then use it sort of as a signpost and live just beyond what you're comfortable with, and as long as you're just beyond what you're comfortable with and you're going in the right direction and you know that, um, that you're being true to yourself and that you're not, uh, you're not falling short of what you could do, of what you could be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like the way you put that. It's kind of, you don't want to be like, I don't want to be like stressed out or worried all the time. But I think getting acquainted with fear is like getting acquainted with like the natural human condition. I mean, there's this, I guess the anxiety around death is what I'm referring to.
Mm,
And like trying to get acquainted with that is growing to be more at peace with that and being at peace with death. And I would think that would unlock more joy or unlock more
mhm.
present.
Yeah, I mean, sort of being aware of death is maybe a beautiful thing, right? If anything, it incentivizes you to live in the present and to be, aware of the fact that we have a limited time on this planet, and why waste it doing something that you don't necessarily want to be doing, or we get 80, maybe now 100 years, right, which is a relatively a long time maybe when you think about it, but also, you know I don't know. The older you get, the faster time goes, and you lose weeks at a time, and then you lose months at a time, right? And if you're like at that 9 to 5 job, not doing what you're passionate about, it's like, um, I think I feel like it all comes down to like, especially entrepreneurs maybe that like focus a lot on money. Is another thing I've been thinking about.
Yep.
I feel like you need to focus on time more than anything. And, like, you sometimes hear it here and there where it's like, the millionaire mindset is like, "Oh, money," but the billionaire mindset is like, "What saves me time?" Like,
Yeah.
living in that abundance mindset of like, "Okay, I'm gonna outsource this stuff because like, I don't wanna do it. I'm not good at it. Somebody else can do it better." And, like, yeah, it's gonna cost me. I'm gonna make less money, but hey, I just saved myself
Time.
4 hours of doing something I don't wanna be doing, right? And so, and in the end, if you're thinking abundance, then there's always more money, right? So,
I agree with abundance, but I want to push back a little bit on that framing of time.
sure.
So I think we too often actually equate time to money. We kind of commoditize time. We
Mm,
say stuff like saving time, spending time,
mm,
losing time. Like it's commoditized, and I think again going back to the industrial revolution, like that started when people were trying to control how much their workers worked, like make sure they worked 10 hours at the factory in a day. And that's when, clocks started to really proliferate. We started to really care about keeping time. Whereas like in the hunter gatherer times, they had no concept of this linear time moving forward and progressing to a more perfect future.
mhm,
They just like they woke up with the sunrise. There was no past or future, there was only the present moment. I'm sure they had worries and stressors, but they were they had no concept except to be in the moment, and then they were kind of moving through that. And so what I'm more interested is, like, deep time, which is, like, kind of becoming a buzzword these days maybe, but I'm interested in tasks that, like, bring out the cosmos in my head, which
mm,
means that I wanna do work that feels deeply gratifying to me, and also I feel like impacts the world in an almost spiritual way. Because, and I'll speak for myself, I in the past have been always trying to, I was kind of someone who's always trying to be hyper efficient,
mhm,
save my time, quote unquote, for some point in the future where I give myself permission to relax. The problem is that point never comes,
mhm.
right? And you're not guaranteed that point in the future. You could be dead.
Right.
So
It never does come, I don't think,
right.
right? It never does. Like, there's always another problem you need to solve. There's always something else to do. So
There's always, or it's like, you want to date a prettier girl, or there's always something
mhm,
more, right? Or you could be healthier or whatever. And so, especially as a startup founder, the action items are infinite. There's no way I'm ever getting through my to-do list. And it kind of freaks me out. but but if I view my present moment as exactly that, and then I say, okay, well, like what's most meaningful for me to do right now, and then accept I'm never gonna have quote unquote enough time, then it's like, okay, now I can start to come to peace with my current situation, right? So I agree that like time should be treated as valuable, but not necessarily as like a commodity. Like I
mm,
agree with outsourcing different things that you don't want to do. Like I definitely agree with that. I would just like I'm really trying to figure out a way where I could be less about stressing about my free time and
mhm.
stressing about the future, and more like enjoying what I'm guaranteed right now?
Yeah, I think we all wanna do what we love, right? We all wanna do something that we enjoy in that present moment,
Yep.
and it's something that's crossed my mind, like, maybe I was sort of raised on the idea of like, oh, you need to work hard, you need to push forward and in life and put your best foot forward, which from a certain point of view is good advice, right? But I sort of got to the point where it's like I want to spend my time the way that I want to spend it, right? And the
Sure.
way that I find valuable and the way that I find gratifying and can both help me and the world. Um, you know? And I sort of got to the point where I was like, "Oh, am I being selfish?" Like, for wanting to do what I wanna do? And I've sort of come around on that right now, is that and realizing that I'm doing if anything you're doing the world a disservice by not doing what you're saying, right?
Love that.
It
Yeah.
so you can't or I've come to the conclusion, right, that, like, it's not selfish, it's something that you have to do, and that the
This
world would be a better place if everyone did that, right?
Yeah, because also if you're passionate about something, you're gonna do it better than if you were doing something that you weren't passionate about, you know?
Mhm,
And ultimately, that's gonna be better for the world if if you're a good person and your passion's gonna help other people, which they
mhm.
will. So, but I don't know. I wanted to ask you, like,
Sure.
because I've been thinking about this lately. Like, do I really care? How much do I care about being remembered after I die?
Mm,
Because in the grand scheme, in deep time, like Steve Jobs isn't going to be remembered in 1,000 years, or 10,000 years. No one's going to be remembered. Who knows?
mhm, mhm,
Like, so to what extent does that matter to you, or does that matter in general? Because I'm not sure.
mm. I think gut feeling is that it doesn't matter, right? I feel like I haven't put much thought into it. It's not a question that I've asked myself recently, but yeah, I think gut feeling is that it doesn't matter, right? Because if anything, it's sort of an attachment to life, right? It's like, oh, I
Yeah,
want the world to remember me because you haven't accepted death. So,
yeah,
it can put you in the position of I have to do something memorable rather than um, something that you want to be doing in the
like
present
joyful.
moment, right? So, and it's a bit, I don't know, maybe a depressing thought, right? But like you're gonna be in the ground, I don't know, what happens after, I'm not sure, but uh, are you really gonna sacrifice your short life for some pursuit of wanting to be remembered in a world that you're not going to live in. So,
Yeah, exactly.
mhm,
Yeah, and I think it's important to think about, though, because especially in the entrepreneur space, people are trying to make as much money as possible, but also trying to
mm,
be like remembered, right? Or to try and have their names on buildings or endowment funds
mhm,
or whatever it is. And though I will say it's important, that's not important to me, but what is important to me is leaving the world a little bit better than it
mhm,
was when I got here. Now, obviously, that's like you can't really like quantify that. It's hard to know. And um, like when I used to be a teacher, every year I think I profoundly impacted like at least a handful of students, right? And so maybe they go on to change the world. Who knows? So it's super hard to kind of tell your impact on the world. But I know for a fact that me, myself as a person, for me to be happy like right now, I need to be having some sort of impact. Like I can't be um I can't be like working at McDonald's or something
mhm,
like that, because to me that would be like a negative impact in the world. Now, sure,
mhm.
I could like have positive interactions with
Right,
customers, and I'm sure I could make someone's day better or
mhm,
something like that. But like in the aggregate, it's like to me it would be a negative impact,
right,
So that's also like, though I think I have a similar answer to you. I'm not sure. I don't think it really matters after you die. But I do like right now, like I do care about like making people's lives better. And part of that is like of my privilege and like me being born in an extremely
mhm,
lucky situation, and in a good like upper middle class household in the US, the richest country in the history of the world. So it's like part of it is like I feel it's like part of my privilege. It
mhm.
necessary as my privilege to like help other people and make other people's lives better.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would argue that, that it isn't a noble pursuit. So, as long as that's what as long as it's coming from the right place, then I don't think, and I don't there's no way to see that in a negative, I don't think so. And, and it sort of brings to the thought of, like, sort of the McDonald's worker, like you were saying, right? Like, for the guy or woman, that is in that position, like, you can, and it may be frustrated or something like that, you can I if that is one of your goals, right? If one of your goals is, "Hey, I wanna make the world a better place," like, hey, you can make someone's day and,
Yeah.
right? And it
And
can
by no
maybe
means I wanna hate on those workers or
I
anything
know
like
you don't.
that,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
just saying, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just coming at it from a place of like, I feel like there's a lot of people that are um, not wanting to do their jobs in the present right now.
Yeah.
Right, they're sort of stuck in a job that they don't want to be doing, and so then you can sort of find those little things and sort of still pursue those goals as you go along in your pursuit. But
And that you can't dispute that there, a certain percentage, maybe the majority of people that don't necessarily want to do the job that they're trapped in or have to do. And it's a privilege, me quitting my job to do quitting my regular job of teaching to be an entrepreneur. That's a privilege in itself that I was even able to do that. Part of the reason I could do that is because I didn't have student debt. You know, Part of the reason was because I've bought a house. I don't have to pay like rent to anyone
mhm,
else. There are like different reasons that I can do that. It's not some like noble, brave thing that I've done. A lot of it does come from privilege and different things like that, and being lucky with my situation. But also, it takes time and work to build that situation around you so that you're ready and prepared to like take a big risk.
mhm. Yeah, and I mean, don't devalue it either because, hey, you worked hard to buy that house. You bought it with your hard-earned money, right? So, you positioned yourself to be able to do it. So, you know, sure there were some circumstantial things that put you in that position that others don't have, but
Yep.
yeah, it's a combination, I suppose. But
Sure.
yeah, so semi switching topics, since I think you mentioned living here in the US. Um, yeah, and I guess we both happen to be the sons of immigrants.
Yep.
So it has the thought ever come to maybe go back to where your parents are from and sort of help and or make a difference there out of
Yeah,
curiosity?
absolutely. So, actually, part of what started me on my startup journey was exploring. So, my parents are immigrants from India, and I was exploring Indian spiritual texts to try and get closer to my heritage and to learn more about my heritage. Because growing up in America, it's been cool, it's been diverse, but I was too white for Indian people that I ran into, and then too Indian for, white and black people I was hanging out with. So it was like I felt very in this sort of nebulous space where I didn't really have a concrete identity.
Mhm,
Um, it was interesting, but I wanted to get closer to my heritage, and it's really important to me to learn a lot about that and to figure out how like my heritage dictates how I act now and kind of the place of privilege or not privilege I am now.
mhm,
And it's definitely important to me to return to India, at least for to live there for a significant amount of time. So I've been there like different vacations, weeks or months at a time, but I want to live there for a significant amount of time. And as a son of immigrants, kind of like get to know my roots, get to know the culture, the language, different things like that,
mhm,
and kind of reconnect there. But recently, I've also been thinking, like, I mean, there's nothing wrong that with being part of American culture and
mhm,
having that unique culture yourself in a way. It doesn't mean you're like some sort of non-person or like someone drifting out in the wilderness. America has a pretty distinct culture as well, and it's of
mhm.
course melting pot of a lot of different things. But yeah, I've enjoyed my experience with American culture as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that every first generation, children of immigrants uh, have. I definitely felt what you're saying, right? I was too Hispanic for the Americans, and then maybe too American for Hispanics, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely have felt that, and I've maybe gone back and forth over the years of like what I've leaned more towards.
right. And you could probably code switch to like you probably know how to be in both groups, but
Oh, for sure, yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely lean more towards one than the other, but and one other thing, I'm not I guess maybe it's not something that you notice is like, and I think I read a study about it a while back. Is like, people that grow up speaking multiple languages have multiple personalities. I
Oh,
mean, I'm
wow.
not saying you're bipolar. I'm not bipolar, right?
No, I know. Yeah.
But I definitely, like when I'm speaking English, I'm a little more German. I'm a little more, rigid and a little more,
Organized.
yeah,
Yeah.
organized and maybe less extroverted. I wouldn't say I mean, I don't consider myself an introverted person, but, less
Right.
extroverted. And then when I'm speaking Spanish, I'm just all over the place, like I
A little more
am.
expressive.
Yeah, exactly, more expressive and loud. I'm always when I have dinner, I'm speaking Spanish. Always, someone always has to remind me, "Hey, lower your voice," like you're at a
Oh,
restaurant.
really?
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know why with Spanish, but like you just tend to speak louder for whatever reason. So, and you can always spot the Hispanic people at a restaurant because uh, they take over a table for like 5 hours.
Right.
And it's like the idea of like a reservation from 7 to 8:30 is like not a thing, right? Like you get there
Yeah.
at 8 or 9, and then you just stay till they close. But
Right.
it's a bit different. Like yeah,
I've I've been learning some Spanish, and my personality in Spanish is that of a 3rd grader because
there you
that's all
go.
my vocabulary allows. So I'm just like a very cute 3rd grader in Spanish.
Fair enough. That's not bad. That's not a bad thing. I mean, all the girls will like you, like that you try, so it's all good.
Right. That's the goal.
Did your parents, teach you some I don't know what they speak actually, because there's so many languages in India. So
Yeah. Yeah, so as you know, there's over, I think, 90 languages and dialects in
mhm,
India, and India is this, like, just such a diverse and vast country that was just kind of called a country by the British, by the colonizers, but it's really a place of many city states with the
mhm.
diversity of like a Europe, right? And so my parents, when I was born here in Dallas, they didn't really see the need to teach me an Indian language because it's also like, what Indian language do you teach? So,
Oh,
for
so they speak
example,
multiple.
yeah, so my parents speak 3 or 4 Indian languages,
Wow.
and like, okay, so like my dad, he speaks Hindi, which is kind of the national,
Mhm.
more of a language of the North, but like it's one of the most prevalent languages. And then he speaks Kannada, which is the language of his state in the South. But he also speaks Konkani, which is like the ancestral language of our fishing town in the Southwest. And so it's like, which of those 3 languages would be really relevant to me? Now, I wish they would have taught me a language. I really
Right.
do. And it's one of my goals in life to learn Hindi or to learn one of the
Mhm.
languages for sure.
Right.
And that'll coincide with me whenever I live in India too.
Yeah, I
But
think continue, continue.
yeah, well, I was just gonna say that like even in India, English is a big connective sort of
Mm,
tissue. Because of the British colonization, India's the one language, or sorry, English is the one language that's spoken all across India. So, like, even my parents, they grew up speaking a lot of English too.
mhm. Yeah, I think I mean, I'll root for you learning a language because I always say like when you like to really know a place, to really know a country, you have to speak the language. And like it
Yeah,
sort of goes back to what you're saying, to what I was saying about, having different personalities in each language, right? It's just like to understand the culture, you sort of have to speak the language, at least some of the language, right?
yeah.
Um, and
It's
so
kind of
I
the
oh,
if you've heard of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis in anthropology,
I have not.
but it basically just posits that in fact language is culture, and so
Mm,
like it's, for example, like the Inuits, like, of Arctic and Alaska,
mhm.
they have, like, 20-25 words for snow, right?
Never
But
heard this. Yeah.
maybe in Nahuatl or, like, Aztec languages, there's not even 1 word for snow, right? That's
Right.
just one minor example, but, like, yeah, language definitely dictates culture in a lot of ways.
And I think now, we live in such a globalized world. I mean, one goal that I've set for myself, like you're saying, you want to, move back to or move to India for an extended period
Yeah.
of time is like personally, I mean, I want to move to South America for a little bit. I mean, my family's from Central America, but
Right.
there's some opportunities that I'm looking at in South America.
Yeah.
And, I'm sort of a lover of Europe. I always wish had grown up in Europe.
Right.
It's just a beautiful place with beautiful people, but, so I would definitely want to spend some time out there and I have thoughts of, I guess recently I've had a lot of thoughts of spending some time in Asia. So I'm sort of the type of person that wants to spend their time in a lot of different places. Right. And I think I've sort of reached that point of like, hey, who says, now in an age of airplanes and things like that and internet and Zoom meetings, like who says that we have to live in one place for the rest of our lives, right? And
Yeah.
there's one guy that I quite enjoy some of his content, and Andrew Henderson's another podcaster, and
Nice.
he has this setup where he talks about having 3 countries, so or 3 or 4 countries, I forget, but you can basically move around between the 3 countries every year, and
Dang.
then yeah, it'd be rough. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I would want to move that much, but, because I really enjoy getting to know a place and, getting a group
Yeah.
of intimate friends, right? But, uh, but yeah, yeah, and part of his intent is sort of never paying taxes, basically, legally.
Uh,
Legally, right? But he actually, like, renounced his US citizenship. It's crazy. But,
so I've heard about, like, different, you know, it's kind of, like, in fashion right now to like, the trend right now is to kind of, like, take a laptop, work abroad, and live
mm,
wherever you want and jump to different
digital
places.
nomad, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a attractive to me to an extent, but on that idea, I'd push back in terms of, like so I heard, like, anecdotally people speak of it like this. There was this one person who was doing this with their laptop, and
Mhm,
they're in Tokyo, Japan. They're in this beautiful, like, cherry blossom garden or something like that, and they saw, like, a family and 2 toddlers
mm,
playing, and they just broke down into tears because they had lost a sense of family, a sense of community. It was just one kind of experience after another. It was
mhm,
one place after another, and they weren't building community anywhere. So for me, it's really important to like build a community of positive impact, of learning from each other, of sharing, and also still experience other places. But I guess what I'm saying is to have like a home base
mhm,
where you're building family, you're building community, you're kind of building some sort of spiritual connection with one
mhm,
place, which is hard to do if you're like going on a train to Europe and spending only like through Europe and spending only like a few nights in one place.
mhm.
I get that. I get exploring the world, but to me, you gotta have like a home base to come back to, you know,
No, I agree completely. That's why I'm saying I wouldn't wanna, move
the
around that
4 country
much.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, and if you think about it, if you choose the same 3 places, you could potentially,
Build
have
community in each.
build the community in each, right? And that's
Just
something I've been contemplating, right? But
definitely like 2 places or 2 or
that's not
3, I think, splitting time and like, if you yeah, I think it's actually possible, like, and I like so I like that idea. That's the first time I've been exposed to, like, that specific idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the sweet spot is more like 2. If you could do, and it doesn't have to be rigid 6 months here, 6 months there, but it's like, hey, I have a house here, I have a house here, and I split
Yeah.
my time between the 2, and and you sort of get to experience, living, quote unquote, living in both of those. And you can sprinkle in some other traveling if to wherever it is that you want to go, right?
Right.
And those are more of the 3 days here type of thing, or 2 weeks, whatever you want to call it. Uh, and that's just that's just a regular vacation, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, and then that's sort of one of my goals, right? But you need a certain amount of freedom to be able to do that, right? Like you need to be able to just sort
Sure,
of
you need to
go
be
over it.
financially secure.
Exactly, exactly.
Your
So
job needs to be one where you feel
permitted.
liberated in.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. Which is why sort of entrepreneurship is part of my path, right? Like that's the only thing that would really I feel allows you to have such freedom, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think some aspects of, when I was, teaching, I did have the freedom to travel because of the big summer breaks,
mm,
and parts of that I liked because I knew I could kind of turn off my brain and I'd still be getting paychecks.
mhm,
What's important as an entrepreneur is, giving yourself permission to relax because any moment is, a time where you could be getting work done,
mhm,
But as we talked about before, there's, infinite action items, right?
right.
So my thing about working abroad is, I have to figure out, okay, what's vacation time? What's work time?
Mm,
And me being a worrier, I can't just, let myself stress the entire time because anywhere I have my laptop is a place where I could potentially
mhm,
work, and I'm a very driven person,
right.
but I also, I wanna be able to enjoy life, you know? So you need to have, boundaries and, create, almost, categories. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a difficult thing, right? You can just work all day, or you can not do anything at all day. But
Yep.
I think, and it sort of brings to mind a little bit of something I was listening to the other day. Sort of like, we have a set amount of dopamine, right? And you can only work so hard for so long. And like, sort of
Yeah.
the idea of the 5-day work week is maybe not the best setup, right? So
Right.
it's like sort of you can be self-aware and be like, "Hey, you know, I'm at 100% today. Let's do it. Let's crush it." And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
then, once you've gone down to 20%, it's like, "Okay, let's not hit 0. Let me take a
Sure.
day off." And the good thing is that if that day happens to be a Wednesday, you can just do it,
You
right?
can do it.
Exactly. So it's
You really can. You just have to hold yourself accountable, make sure you don't do it too much, I guess,
right.
but it's I love how people are talking about self-care more. I
Mhm.
love that people are talking about offering yourself grace more. I think that's, a good trend, if anything.
Yeah, yeah. It all goes back to that, like, being aware of your inner critic, right? Being aware that, you can sort of be very vicious to yourself.
Well,
Yeah.
it brings me back to our whole time as a commodity conversation
Mhm,
because you can get trapped in this mode of thinking that, okay, there's a 5-day work week. If I don't work 10 hours Monday through Friday, I'm wasting time or losing time. Again,
mhm.
you're hearing these commodity words or money
Right.
based words. And it's I mean, maybe you could do more things off of your list, maybe,
Mhm,
but what's more important is if you get yourself self-care and be
mhm,
mentally healthy, because then you can help more people. And being mentally healthy is just inherently good, not just
mhm.
good so you can help more people. That's just inherently a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember when I was in grad school, I just wanted to work, 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 take as much advantage of the time as I could. And like later after that, I realized maybe, that was not the best, the best way of doing it, right? And like
Gotcha.
I stopped going to the gym. Like it's not good, right? And so then, I was,
I
just
can't
working.
imagine you as being fat ever.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'll ever have that issue, my friend, but
Right.
but
I don't
yeah, I
even know
was.
what you would look like. Yeah.
I have to get one of those AI generated pictures and just
Yeah.
put myself as fat. Um, but yeah, I was working afterwards, just, a regular job, I guess. And I realized like, hey, like the days that I work out, I'm so much more productive, right? And it's like
There you go.
you can think of those days or those hours of you working out as like a waste of time, or you can think of it as just regenerative, like sleep, right? Like
Yeah.
working out is just as important as a lot of other things. In your daily routine that can make you more productive in the hours that you do work, right? Because you can work 10 hours at 60%, or you can work 6 hours at 100%.
Right.
And, it's all slightly relative. So,
Yeah, and I think kind of on that note, and especially in the startup world, what I've noticed is a lot of the really successful entrepreneurs
Mhm.
love to tell stories about how, "Oh, I killed myself
Mhm.
working, like, all night," like, they
It's a
did all
badge
this
of
stuff.
honor, man.
Yeah, they use it as, like, a badge of honor, but my theory, and it's consciously or subconsciously, they're saying this because they don't wanna acknowledge how much luck and privilege
Mhm.
went into them being successful.
For
For
sure.
example, like, I think it was Bill Gates who was born, within a mile of 2 supercomputers, which was
Mhm.
extremely rare during that time, and, like, his parents had a license for him to go and use the computer somehow, and, like, there are all these lucky factors. Of
Right.
course, he's still a brilliant man, he's still probably worked hard, of course, but, like, a lot of founders, a lot of entrepreneurs like to tell that story because it seems like, oh, they're just a really hardworking
Mhm.
individual. And it takes away the factors of, like, privilege and luck,
Mhm.
all these other factors that go into it, you know?
Yeah, it's a little, like, self-aggrandizing, it's, maybe
Yeah,
a
the
little bit.
rags to riches
Right,
story.
right, right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, w when you get and let's say you're in an interview, right? Like, if someone asks you, what was that thing that made you get to where you are now? Like, what are they gonna say? "Oh, I had privilege." No, they're not gonna say that, right? Like,
Right.
"I was super
It's not
lucky."
as compelling of a story.
Exactly, like, I don't know, I'm assuming Bill Gates is pretty high IQ as well, so it's like, oh, he also was just lucky to have been
But
born.
that's luck too, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of nurture and, his
Sure.
surroundings when he was growing up, maybe it's a combination, right? But, um, and it's not to say, you know I don't want anybody to think like, "Hey, like, oh, I wasn't born with the supercomputer a mile away from me, so I can't do anything."
You
Right?
don't want that either.
You don't
Yeah.
want that thought of just, like, being okay, throwing your hands up and being like, "Okay, I can't do anything," right? Like, you
Yeah.
you you take what you can and you work with it, right? And,
Sure.
you don't tell yourself any stories of, "I'm incapable," or, "I wasn't born lucky," or, you can't tell yourself stories like that, so then you're just limiting yourself and
Yeah, it's kind of like, so it would be a lot easier for me to make the NBA if I was, like, 6'10", right?
yeah, yeah.
But I'm 6'1", which is also still lucky in terms of basketball, but now I'd have to work a lot harder to make the NBA. I still could make the NBA. There are people who are six
Mhm,
one. There are people who are 5'10". There are lots of different types of people in the NBA, but it's kinda like you're born with your hand of cards, and then you kinda have to, like what you said, work with what you got in a
mhm,
sense.
mhm,
But then again, but then it's still possible to make it, to do it.
mhm. Yeah, this sort of makes me, think of something here, like, I feel like we all have these, like, societal agreements that we, just accept as truth, And, like,
Sure.
we're sort of raised to believe these agreements, um, and, part of the whole journey, right, is breaking loose of those agreements and realizing, "Hey, I can make of life as I wish."
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess I have a question for you is, like, what's maybe one agreement that you think that you had and that you broke through? Um, no, it doesn't have to be, like, necessarily, like, in the process of AloeVR, but just
Yep.
something that you went through growing up or afterwards, 'cause I do generally consider you a person that hasn't followed those norms, right? So I was curious.
Thank you, great question. One one thing that I don't know if this completely fits the term, like, agreement,
Mhm.
but
Don't get too attached to the one word I chose, right?
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, one thing that's almost been radical for me
Mhm.
is not viewing love as just romantic love.
Mm.
So there can be friendship love, community love, lots of different types of love. And I think with that word, we usually jump to, like, Hollywood romantic love or
Mhm.
something. And part of what got me thinking in a different way, which eventually my feelings about community love eventually led me to starting AloeVR in an effort
Mhm,
to help heal the community, help bring more love to the community, right?
mhm.
But anyway, um, one thing that started me on this path was this book called All About Love, which it kind of sounds like a cheesy self-help book, but
I've
it's
read
really
many
kind of
things, don't worry about it.
it's All About Love by Bell Hooks, and she's like a feminist from the 80s, and she's really interesting, but the book itself is kind of a collection of her essays
Mhm,
on love and love's place in our current society. And like, where have we eroded love in our society? And I think this is especially important to talk about between two men, because
mhm,
it's like I, for a long time in my life, had trouble talking about my emotions and had trouble being vulnerable. And this was actually holding me back, because I wasn't able to, when I would have mental health challenges, I wasn't able to get the help I need, you know? So my goal, not as an entrepreneur, really just as a person, is to
mhm,
kind of start the dialogues about love, start the dialogues about healing and like being vulnerable with each other and like how that can be masculine, that can
mhm.
be manly to do that. We both come from like immigrant parents, and there's that cliche about immigrant dads, like their little like floats off.
Right.
Not talking about
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I don't want to speak on your dad, but for my dad for sure. And so, part of like the most important part of my journey here is becoming more comfortable
Mhm,
with love and a love ethic, kind of practicing love. Um, and I think in a way that's radical in our society, in a way that's rule breaking, in a way that's breaking the agreement or the norms of our society, talking about love every day.
yeah, I love that you brought this up. Um, I don't know, I've been thinking about not that in that particular way, but I've definitely been thinking about love in general, uh, recently a lot because I feel like, yeah, and maybe, maybe things have changed recently or, I mean, before, like, uh, I think two things, right? There's a certain importance of, as men to being able to say, well, first of all, like, if you hear somebody in common on the street, right, say "I love you" to another guy, you have to, like, add "bro" or add something,
Oh, right.
right?
I was just talking about this with my old roommate. He was saying, and sorry to interject, but he was saying that it cheapens the "I love you" if you say "bro" after. So now he's just like, "I love you," and there's just like a silence after it. Yeah.
Period. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can't say, "I love you, man. I love you, bro," anything like that. But, sorry, please keep going.
No, no, yeah, that's good. There's that movie, I Love You, Man. It's a good one.
Right, it's a
Mhm.
really good one.
But, yeah, I lost my train of thought there a little bit. Oh, right. So then, um, you know, I think it's very important as men to like realize like, hey, like your male community is very important, right? And yeah,
Yeah,
there's like a sense of love between those. And if anything, sometimes it's easier to love your male friends. Right, like, it's not the same type of love as
right,
with a woman, right? But if anything, like, it's, a different like, a more detached, in a good way, type of love, right? Where you don't expect anything in return, right? You're just
right.
friends and like, "Hey,
Really pure in that sense.
Exactly, right? And that's something that I've been sort of thinking about a lot. I was like, why I feel like that is a very masculine way of loving, right? And, like, that's really how I think you should love a woman as well, right? Like, you shouldn't
Yeah,
get attached to that person and,
it
like
shouldn't be dependent and all this stuff.
right, yeah, and if anything, like, biologically and evolutionarily speaking, women sort of do look for that, right? Like they don't want a guy that's gonna like sort of change his way of being for them and things like that, right?
Right.
Or like be needy and like attached and all this stuff. So if anything, like it's I think it's like the masculine way in general of loving it. Like the more we can do it in all areas of our life, the better it is, right? And the pure the love is. So it's just something I think about while I walk down the street.
Yeah, no, I know, I agree, and, with this book that I mentioned, All About Love by Bell
Mhm.
Hooks, what I did the first time I read it, I was kinda, like, underlining stuff, annotating stuff,
Yeah.
and then I gave it to a guy friend, and I was like, "Hey, check this out, annotate it, read it, write all over it if you like," and not everyone agrees with all aspects of the book, but I've started kind of a train of people reading it and annotating it, right?
Mhm.
Now there's like many conversations going on in the book and many debates and stuff. And the point is not for people to agree with that book or my thoughts in particular, but to just start the dialogue about emotions and love and healing. And like, I know that sounds very hippie, but I do think we can have a more beautiful society if we're less closed off, if we have less anger inside, then that
Mhm.
that kind of helps all aspects of society, you know?
No, definitely. I mean, you know, if we all live life with a pure sense of love and pairing that with what we've been talking about like living your inner truth and doing what you genuinely want to be doing, and following your heart, uh, then it's inevitable that we create a better society, right? So,
I would hope so. Yeah, absolutely. And just question for you, bringing it back to the evolutionary aspect between men and women. Do
mhm,
you think there's a factor of like women wanting because of like, human beings having like the 9-month pregnancy term, different things like that, like women wanting to be protected and men being dependent on them in that way, if only to protect them in some way. And like how do gender roles
mhm.
now conform to that now in like present day?
Hmm. How do they still follow that? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, or do they? Do they need to?
Mm,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, I think if you think about like a caveman, right? Like I think if you're in a dangerous situation, like I don't think a woman wants you to take her opinion into in that particular moment, to take her
If
opinion
it's like
or
a life or death
right,
situation.
yeah, she just
Yeah,
wants
yeah.
you to not think and like just act and solve the problem and get the family, the baby to safety and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think evolutionarily speaking, I think that's where that comes from. But in the modern day, it's obviously, and I think it's part possibly of like where there are issues in marriages and things like that,
Yeah.
is not being able to do that as a guy. But I do think it's important, um, to have that like polarity of masculine and feminine, right?
Okay.
Um, you know, like you can go to work, your wife can go to work, and then maybe your wife has to be more masculine at work because it's a workplace, right?
Uh-huh.
But then you come home and maybe the dynamic changes in that position. So you know I still think it's something that's necessary. You still have to have that polarity, like even if it's 2 guys or 2 girls, right? Like, I feel like you need to have that sort of
Some sort of
polarity of
balance there.
right, yeah, like, you need to have the masculine, feminine polarity, and everybody has masculine in them and feminine in them, right? Like, it's not necessarily, like, attached to your sex. Um,
Right.
so I think it's just, like, recognizing what it is that you have in you and then, um, uh, uh, making that work for you, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if maybe I went off on a little bit of a tangent,
No, no, I
but,
this is why I asked. I
yeah,
knew
yeah,
you'd have
yeah.
an interesting opinion on it.
Yeah, so I think there has to be one person that sort of is in that mindset of, um, that masculine mindset of like, I love you, but I have to do this in life. And like, usually it's men where they because we're more purpose driven, um,
Mhm.
on average. So, and maybe going back to the whole, doing what's your inner truth, right? Like that's important, right? Like you can't let that slide. Uh, because if you let that slide, maybe your significant other then, loses certain attraction for you, right? That if you had, that's who they fell in love.
Like
It's like the typical like, oh, he's not the guy I fell in love with anymore, right?
right.
Or, like after 20 years because he's worked a job he hates and like has, isn't because he genuinely isn't the guy that she fell in love with, right? So I think that's another important reason you need to do what is important to you and what you think is the right path without letting anybody, not just your wife, but or, significant other without, uh, but just anybody, right?
In
Right. You can't
general,
let,
yeah.
yeah, you just can't let anybody influence you. So,
Yeah, and that I feel like that's equally applicable to everyone. Well, I guess biologically speaking, women may have more nurturing aspects
mhm.
for sure, but like just in general, everyone has that inner passion or inner truth that they can illuminate, and that they can figure out. And for some women or some men, that might be just being a great parent. Who knows? Maybe that's like the one thing that they were born to do, or there might be multiple things. And we're lucky to live in an age where you can pursue multiple interests. You can travel around the world. You can do different things.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I think it's like you can't. Because if anything, like, it's an attachment, right? You can't get attached to some particular idea. So,
yeah,
if you have to just whatever works for you, right? And yeah, like you're saying, whatever being a good parent, if that's your thing, then do it to the fullest, right? It's just all about living life to 100 and not living life on neutral. Don't don't
yeah.
don't live it halfway.
Right, right, absolutely. I like that, just living it I guess, yeah, the whole cliche of living your life to the fullest
Yeah,
really does have true merit, I think. Yeah, yeah, it's, like, basically how I wanna do things, so,
right.
yeah,
Definitely, definitely. Well, I think, it's good to end on a note of love. So,
absolutely, thank
so,
you.
for sure. Well, it was good to have you on, and, why don't you I don't know if you have, a way for people to reach out to you, so and I'll put a link in the description, but you
Yeah,
can yeah.
really honored to be on, and, if anyone wants to learn more about AloeVR, it's aloevr.com, so ALOEVR.com. And then I kind of chronicle a little bit of my journey on Instagram, and that's aloe_Vedant. So you want to keep following the journey or reach out and dialogue about love. Those are the ways.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks again.
Thank you.